some more beautiful hay to rake up here with the Kubota rake. We'll square bale this field. Today. 60-30's hooked to the bat wing bush hog. My dad was bush hogging something with it, and I need to do a little bit of bush hogging with it also. So I'm just going to leave it hooked up, and I'll do everything with the 1095. I'll square bale with the and round bale. I got a little round bale to do today too. I'll do that with the all with the T5. Just still hooked to the mower. I got to switch it out, but I ain't too big a hurry today. I'm just, the sun's bright, and I'm just letting it dry down good before I rush it and try to bale it. It's 1:45 right now, so I got plenty of time. I ain't got but about 10 or 11 acres down right now. That other field I've got over there, it's like 8 or 9 acres. The one that I told you about in the other video, that the other farmer accidentally raked it. He had some custom harvesters over there that was going to do some chopping, and they accidentally raked my field over there because it borders his field. And that field is extremely wet. There's a lot of water standing in it, and it hadn't dried out like I was hoping it would. And it's, I mean, sometimes that field gets wet, but it's never been wet like it is now. It's extremely wet. And I've been over there tedding and trying to get it tedded out. Some of it isn't even going to be able, I'm not even going to be able to bale it. I'm just going to have to rake around the wet spots and just leave what's laying in water, just leave it there. Ain't nothing I can do about it. It's been drying for 3 days, and it's not even, where it's wet, it's still water 3 inches deep. This tractor looked like I'd been mud bogging with it, where I had been tedding that field and the tedder and throwing mud all over the tractor and all over the back window, and the wheels splashed mud all up in the wheels. It was pretty bad shape. So I did wash this thing while I was waiting on hay to dry. I washed the tedder and I washed the T-end. Got it all cleaned up again, but hopefully I don't make too big of a mess of this rake and tractor again when I go over there to rake it. I'm going to try to stay out of it. The parts that are so wet where I've been over there, the hay is turned completely brown from this, where I've been slinging mud and water all over. I was hoping I could get it up on the stubble. Sometimes you can bale hay in water like that without any issues. If you can get it up on the stubble, and it's not a whole lot of water, but there's just so much water over there. It's got to be 3 inches deep, and I just can't do nothing with it. It's ridiculous. Decided to say the heck with it and just try to rake around, get the good hay, the dry hay off of it, and just let the rest of it go. I bet you I still get more hay off of it than I did last year. So I think first cutting last year I got like see out there, but to the left of that tree right there, it's brown. The grass is, the hay is just brown, and then on out down in the field a ways, it's also brown. And what it is, there's so much water under it. Every time I run through it, it just picks up water with the hay and slings it through it. And then this hay has been run over way more than it ever would had, because it got raked right after it was mowed accidentally. Like say they chopped this field here, my line is about right here. They accidentally raked, the custom harvesters accidentally raked this field, and when it was like I mowed it one night, and then the next morning at like 10 o'clock they raked it accidentally, and it wasn't nowhere near even beginning to dry. And then it sat like that for a few hours, and then they come over here and tedded it and tried to spread it back out the best they could, but the wind, it was so heavy, it just didn't spread out good. And I've worked with it. I've had to come over here and work with it, trying to get it spread out like it is now, which it ain't too bad now. But it got run over a whole lot more than it normally would had, and it just pushed the hay down in the ground and into the water worse. And the more I tried to ted it, the worse it got as far as where the water is. So what I'm going to try to do is just work around the areas that are real brown and wet, and get the good hay, and just I'll come back with a bush hog or something, just chop up that wet hay and just let it lay and rot. I'm not real concerned about it. Just one of them things that happen. I'm sure I still would have had trouble even if they hadn't raked it accidentally. And it's not their fault. I mean, they didn't know. It's not really anything to define where these fields are. But we don't normally have trouble because I'm typically the one that does my hay, and the guy that does his hay normally does it himself. But where he hired those guys, they didn't know. And that's all right. It ain't no big deal. It just made it a little more work. But it was, I had to get this field mowed. It was wet. I knew it was going to be wet, but it's one of them fields I had to get mowed. If I just leave it, don't mow it, I start getting phone calls about it. So I went ahead and mowed it. Get the biggest of it up. Hopefully it'll be all right. I know it'll be. What's dry is good hay. All right, right here to the left is a wet spot, and I can see the water ponding up down there. I'll try to get around this spot. Not nearly as bad as what some of these places it's never wet are. You see all this over here to the left. Oh well, I don't know that you can see over there. It's low over there. It's all wet. Shape it got in, but ain't nothing I can do about it now. Coming up on a big spot here that got wet. All that over there to your left is just wet as it can be. nice to have been able to got it all up. Got to put it in 4-wheel drive and start spinning. That's bad when you got to have 4-wheel drive to get through the hayfield that you're raking. This is a nice little barn right here. They fixed it up right smart. It's a neat little barn. I think it used to be a milk barn back in the day. One thing I like about this rake, it don't matter if you've done raked it or what you've done. You can keep driving back and forth through your windrows and moving them and manipulating them however you want to with this rake, and it forms them back just like you do when you rake it the first time. You can run with these rotary rake type windrows, you can run the baler sideways through them, and it doesn't try to pull the whole windrow with you. It'll just take out the spot right where the pickup head goes through, and that's it. Because it's not all roped together. It's still raked up, but it's all fluffed up, and the hay isn't tied all wrapped up together. It's just the way it rakes it. That's the neat thing about it. All right, a couple things about this rake right here I want to share with you, and both of them are good things. One of them is the rake quality, or how well it cleans the field up. Like, look right here, this rake probably cleans the field up as good as any rake I've ever used. There's my windrows. They're pretty good size, but there's really hardly any grass left in the field here. Just very little. Probably about the least amount of any rake I've ever used. Now, the other thing I'd like to say about this rake, wipe some of the dust off here. A lot of people complain about these type of rakes not raking the center swath of hay, and that is true. If you open this rake up to its full width, it's not going to rake this into the center of the swath, but for what I'm doing, I typically have to run the rake sucked all the way in for square baling to make the windrows narrow enough. And square baling is when you really want to get when you want it to rake all the hay. Round baling, you can get by with it. I always ted my hay the day I'm going to bale it anyway, so it's not a big deal to me anyway. But if you're not going to ted it that day and you're going to square bale it, this rake actually, let's get down here and look. Here's the curtain. Look how close these teeth right here run to this curtain. This rake actually rakes within, I'm going to say, it rakes within like 4 inches of the curtain right here. And it does that on both sides of this curtain. So it's actually disturbing this hay. If anything, if it's leaving anything down here, it's leaving maybe an 8-inch strip between the rotors that it's not raking when this rake's sucked all the way in. So I just thought I'd point that out on this Kubota rake, that when it's sucked all the way in, you're basically raking the whole thing, even underneath the windrow, because it picks it up and then it drops it right back. So that's a I hadn't had any issue with wet hay because of raking with this rake, having that wet strip underneath that didn't get raked. I hadn't had that issue. So anyway, thought I'd share that about this rake, that I was pleased about that. And the other thing I was concerned about when I was going to buy this rake was, would it rake narrow enough to square bale with the 50/60 square baler I have? And it does. This windrow right here, it's probably 40 to 48 inches wide, and the pickup head is 65 inches if I remember correctly on a BC 50/60, which is what I've got. So there's no problem there. Even when you get in heavier hay like this spot right here, the windrow typically just gets taller. Like this windrow here is about this level here on me, but it's not a whole lot wider. It may be I don't know, 48 to 50 inches wide, which is still plenty narrow to get in the baler. So if you're thinking about buying one of these rakes and you're worried about getting in your pickup head, as long as you got about a 60 inch to a 65 inch pickup head, there's no issue there. So anyway, I'll let y'all go for now. I'll be baling here in a little while.